What is up? My name is Andrew and welcome back to Safari Land. This is our scenery based theme park. So this is episode number 2 and today we actually get quite a bit done, I think, with the entrance. And I think by the end of this, the park looks very much more complete. Well, not complete, but the entrance at least does. It starts to look actually like a theme park rather than 3 random facades of ticket booths just sitting there. So what we're going to be doing today is it's all about the entrance today, all about trying to get that entrance to look really nice. And starting out, I didn't like those little holes that we had in the path, so instead of using the pathing system like we were doing earlier, I tried to do some sort of grid pathing, and I think it turns out looking really well. And then we go along to try and get to fill out these buildings a little bit, because originally they were just facades of ticket booths. Now we want to actually make them real buildings. And so we're going with this kind of concrete wall here, and we're just to try and fill that out. And then we're going to go with, we want a little wood piece on the front, just so that you don't see the whole concrete wall. And this is very typical of parks to have. Like, you wouldn't see the whole building from the front. You would see this kind of cool facade looking thing. And so that's kind of what I'm going for here. So if you remember in last episode, we had a little bit of a go at doing the rock face on the building. And we had a little bit of trouble with that, not gonna lie. It's not very easy to do that because the rocks in this game are typically pretty jagged and they don't lend themselves well to being, and you can see right there, they don't lend themselves well to being used as kind of a facade for a wall. But I had this idea in this one, and what I wanted to do is I thought maybe if I take all these rock pieces, make them as small as possible by embedding them into the building, and then make them as close as possible, minimizing that space, the empty space, the empty wall space, then it would look a little bit closer to what these rock facades look like in real life. And it actually turns out much better than I thought it would. It actually starts to look kind of like a real rock facade, as you'll see right there. I mean, it doesn't look as good as the normal ones do, but it doesn't look as bad as the one we originally did. So what I'm doing now is I'm switching out that wall for stucco instead of, is it stucco or stucco? I don't know how that's pronounced, but I'm switching that out the concrete for that, because I think it looks much nicer and it looks much closer to the kind of theme that we have here, which is of course the wild safari. So trying to use coal there as a rock, but it's just much too small, whereas all the other rock pieces are much too big. So there's no middle ground that you kind of have with the rocks. Trying to squish everything here a little bit closer. And actually what I realized is that if I squish every rock close like this, trying to make a facade, when I take all the rocks out, like when I pull them all out together, it actually looks like a really nice rock wall. And you'll see once I actually pull those out after I add in this big rock here, you'll see that it kind of looks like a really nice rock wall. So here we go. I'm going to pull it out and look at that. Look at that. It's pretty fast, but you can see that it's a really nice rock wall that I could end up using a little bit later. Maybe stick that alongside a path and it starts to look really nice. So there's our rock facade, and I think it looks pretty decent. Now, one thing I want to go with here in this series, and it's one thing that I've never, well, the whole scenery builds I've never done really, but I want to do, so if you think of a park, there are 2 parts of a park, right? There's the if you think of a park like a stage, there's the stage, which is what the audience sees, what all the visitors see, and then there's the backstage, which is the what none of the audience sees, but it's more of the stuff that's needed to keep the stage running. So in a park you have this front stage and this backstage as well. So these rock facades would be the front stage sorts of things here that the audience would see. It's only there so that the audience sees it and it looks nice. But then that door back there, the door to get into that building, would be the backstage. And what I've never done while playing Roller Coaster Tycoon, while playing Planet Coaster, I've never worked on backstage areas, and I think that might be something really cool to work on in this playthrough. I think it'd be a really nice thing. And so that's what we're gonna do quite a bit in this episode, is actually working on some of that backstage area, and you'll see that in a couple of minutes. What we're doing now is we're doing a little bit of interior work on this building. I don't typically like to do interior work because it's much more difficult to do than exterior work, and it's a lower payoff as well. So when you do exterior work, it looks really nice from afar, and even if you get close it looks really nice. But when you do interior work, it only looks really nice if you actually go inside all the buildings. And it's just not enough of payoff to spend so much time trying to get all the interior work done. But that said, I felt like we did need to do some interior work here so that these, when you look in those windows, you don't see a bunch of rocks and an empty building. So we had to do a little bit of that. And probably throughout this series, we'll have to do some interior work in select spots. Lighting was a big thing that I wanted to get good in this entrance, because the park, I don't know when the opening hours and closing hours are going to be, but typically closing hours for parks are around 10, 11 p.m. So by then it's definitely dark. So we like this warm lighting on the outside. Kind of goes with the theme, I think. So there we go. That's our nice rock facade and such. I think it looks pretty nice. We still haven't found a place to put that Safari Land sign. But now we're going to move on to something a little bit different. And this is, well, you'll see what it is once we get there. But we end up moving it a little bit because I don't like where it's placed. And I feel like there's a much better place. But what we're doing is, if you look at the park from afar, you'll notice that there's not very much going on except for what's in front of you. There's the ticket booths, and that's it. There's nothing to the left or to the right. And when you actually look at a real park, what you'll find is that typically there are trees or buildings or something off to the left and the right, and they kind of herd you in the direction towards the entrance of the park. So that's what we're going for here. We're making a sort of forest here, and we're actually going to move this a little bit later, like I said, because I didn't feel like it fit very well, but we have it for future use, so no worries. But what we're doing here is we're actually going to make a waterfall. And I like making waterfalls in this game, as you can probably tell from the Alpine Adventures series as well. We made a waterfall there. And like I was saying earlier, we want to do a lot of backstage stuff here. So this is what you would kind of see in a backstage of a real waterfall. And the audience wouldn't see this, but this is kind of the building that holds up the waterfall, and the equipment that would pump the water from the bottom of the waterfall back to the top of the waterfall. So that's the building that we're working on there, and it'd be like a little maintenance, kind of a maintenance shack or a maintenance building. And so we're working on that and making the roof and everything. And for the waterfall itself, the adventure pack, is it the adventure pack? I think it's the adventure pack. It comes with this really nice waterfall pieces, and this right here is just the waterfall top piece. But since it's such a small waterfall, we can actually just use that, and it ends up looking really nice, I think. And you'll see, just using those little waterfall pieces, we got this kind of flowing water here. And going with the backstage stuff, we had to have these little pipes that would be pushing out the water, I think. But I didn't like the position that they're in right there. I wanted them to be kind of a little bit less visible, so we kind of faced them up like that. But yeah, that's typically what you would have in a waterfall, and that's just a little pipe to bring the water from the bottom of the waterfall back to that building, which would contain the big pump that you would have. There's a couple of trees here. Now you notice we're actually using full trees as those bushes right there. Those are full trees that are hidden underground to make up those bushes. And I mean, if you want to find a large texturing kind of thing to add to the bottom of a forest, I think that works pretty well, because the trees cover a large area, and it's kind of like a really big bush. So a little bit filling out of this whole area just to make it look like much more of a forest, and then a couple of trees to stick in there. And then we're going to do some work on on more of the backstage area for that waterfall, because I think it's an interesting idea, the whole backstage. I think it would be really cool to have kind of a network of backstage areas. So like maybe a whole trail or a whole track that the people who work at the park would go on to get to where they want to go. And you'll see more of that in a minute or two. But once again, working more on making that forest look a little bit more realistic. And what I wanted to do here is I felt like that wall didn't look right. It looked a little bit too even, I guess. I don't know. I felt like there needed to be something to break it up a little bit. So we're making this little post that we can put there. And we're gonna just gonna stick this in a couple of different places on the wall. And I think it definitely makes it look nicer having that post there to kind of break up that wall a little bit. Finally, we're gonna add some rocks along the side to I don't really know what the rocks are. It just looks nice. I don't really know why we wanted rocks there. The whole thing, it's difficult to kind of mimic how real parks do this sort of transition into a forest, I think, because what they typically do is they have like a weird, like the path kind of raises, and then there's sort of like really small rocks, and then it goes into a forest, and it's a bit difficult to do. You need to kind of find pieces that work with what you're trying to do, but I think having those rocks there makes it look pretty nice. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the actual entrance area. So what you've got first is you've got those ticket booths. You got 3 big ticket booths there. So that's where everyone would go first. They'd get their tickets, or maybe they've already got their tickets online or something, and then they would go to this little pavilion, or big pavilion rather, and they would find their they'd be able to get into the park using their tickets. So that's what we're working on here. A lot of influence from pictures of Animal Kingdom. These first 3 ticket booths plus this big pavilion here are pretty much, if you look at pictures of Animal Kingdom, this is exactly what they have. So a lot of influence from them there. And that's not a bad thing. It's the first part of this is going to kind of mimic Animal Kingdom, but then what's going to happen is it's going to kind of transition into a Busch Gardens type of feel. So it's going to be weird. It's going to, the first part is like Animal Kingdom, and then what you're going to have as well, and you'll see this in a couple of minutes as well, we'll start to work on a bathroom actually. It's going to look like Busch Gardens. So it's kind of like a transition, or not a transition, but a merge between both of the parks at the start. And then I think we're going to kind of bail off of that and work on kind of our own thing. But definitely, if you've ever been to Animal Kingdom / Busch Gardens, you'll notice a lot of things that are very similar to how they do their stuff. So still working on this pavilion here, and you can tell it's a very long pavilion, and what it's going to have is it's going to have those turnstiles. It's going to have security tables, places where people would say, take off your bag and step through this. I don't know if they'd have a security scanner, but they definitely have bag checkers to make sure no one's smuggling in anything that they shouldn't be smuggling in. So almost done here. Just got to get those pillars to line up properly. Little consequence of rotating everything, but there we go. And I decided Safariland, maybe a good place to have would be on top of that, because we wanted the Safariland to fit on top of the ticket booth, but unfortunately it just didn't. It was just too big for the ticket booth to hold. But however, it can fit on top of that. The question is, should we keep it there? And that's something that you should probably post down in the comments. What do you think? Should we keep the Safariland sign there? Or the other option is that maybe we could have it, if we have a mountain, we could have it on the mountain. If we have a hill, we could have it on a hill surrounded by flowers or something. I don't know. There's a bunch of options that we could do with our Safariland sign. I just don't know what we should do. So for now, we're going to keep it there, but it's subject to change. It might be moved in the future. A little bit more work on those paths there, and we're good there. Okay, so now some more backstage for this waterfall. So this would be a big building, a big maintenance kind of outpost, and so you're gonna have a door for them to actually get into. And so we're gonna start with that, and then what we want to do, this is kind of going back to what I was saying about having a backstage trail, maybe where like maintenance could have golf carts and they could drive around. So we're using kind of a trail texturing on the ground there, and we're also going to use those bamboo. You just saw. I think the bamboo looks really nice, and you'll actually see we use it quite a bit in this. I love bamboo. It looks really nice. A little bit of lighting to light up their way so that they don't crash into the trees and such. And at night, I think this looks really cool. It looks really eerie and awesome. We're going to add a little bit of a ladder. The ladder is just so that you can get on top. There is equipment up top, so you would have to get up top in case something breaks. And of course, you can't have an up top area without a railing. You don't want to get sued. Even though this isn't for the guests, you don't want to get sued by your workers because they fell off a building. So, got to have that railing. Here we go. I think it's almost done with the this current part here. This is actually three separate episodes. Kind of, it's like 3 separate recording moments, I guess. Each about an hour long, sped up about 1,000 times speed. So what we're doing now is, once more, we're working on the backstage area, and this would be the area where it'd be hidden from the public, but a staff would be able to get in there just to get into that ticket building. So now, while it is conceivable to think that there might be an underground tunnels connecting all of these, There's probably not going to be, because well, at least the parks that I look at are all in Florida. You've got your Animal Kingdom, you've got your Busch Gardens. These are in Florida, and Florida does not have very much underground. Reason is because it's very swampy. It's difficult. So where in the north you might have quite a bit of basements, a lot of them. Like every house has a basement. In Florida you don't have those. You just can't. You can't have basements. You can if you do a lot of structural integrity stuff. I said that weird, structural integrity, but it's very difficult. So here we go. We made a custom fence, and I think it ends up looking pretty cool. This is something that I saw on a channel called Geekism. I think I mentioned that channel in the last episode, but custom fence looks pretty awesome, and I think we're gonna use it quite a bit in this because it's a cool looking wooden fence here. We're gonna use that just to kind of separate the area from the public. And so typically the way this would work here is if you're the public, if you've already bought your tickets, you're just gonna walk past this area. You're not even gonna acknowledge that it exists. You won't see it. The fence, you'll see the fence, but you won't remember it. You'll be too busy looking forward at like the cool roller coasters that you see that you won't even notice that this even exists. So, but in the event that you do notice that it exists, we're gonna have a staff only sign so that you don't go poking your nose around in places you shouldn't go. So there's a little staff only sign here. And we decided that probably the top looks best. There wasn't a sign small enough, unfortunately, that I could put a staff only on. Messing with the birds a little bit. And here we go. So what we're doing now, boom, look, see, I mentioned that I didn't really like where it was positioned. What we're gonna do is we're gonna move it off to the side, and then later when we actually want to use that little piece of forest, we're gonna come back and use that. And the reason that I moved it off to the side in the first place is because I figured our park's called Safari Land, and while jungle is kind of cool or kind of fine when you're talking about safari is kind of like hunting in a wild landscape. It's not great to have a jungle as the entrance because that's not what people expect when they think of safari. So what we're probably going to end up having is we're probably going to have a place called like once you get in, you have Safari Land. That's you're getting in. Then you got these different little areas, kind of like Islands of Adventures have different little islands that you can go to. We're gonna have different themed areas. So we're gonna have Congo World or Congo Land or Congo, I don't know, Congo Place. And in the Congo, there are these there's forest. There's a big rainforest kind of thing in the Congo. So that's where we're gonna have that. This will be kind of a forested area. And then you have like the lands of Somalia or the Sahara, not Safara. Sahara, I don't know. Sahara Adventure. I don't know. You'd have these islands and that's where that stuff would go. So what we're doing here, before you get into the park, this is crazy. Crazy idea, right? Before you get into the park, we're going to have bathrooms. And it's insane, I know, because typically what happens is you get into the park and your reward for getting into the park is a bathroom right there. Everyone uses those bathrooms. If you've ever been to a theme park, I'm sure you've used the first bathrooms. But we did need to fill this area out somehow, and I figured it would look really nice if we had buildings here. What better building to have than a bathroom, right? Everyone needs them. So building a little bathroom here. Very, very influenced by Busch Gardens. If you go and look at the entrance to Busch Gardens on Google Maps, you'll see a building that looks very similar to this. Not exactly, but very similar. We're actually going to close off that right there. And don't worry, the guests can actually walk through those doors. And in real life, what would happen is those doors would open. They'd be opening doors, or maybe one of the sides would be propped open. But I just didn't like having the bathroom look. I felt like it took away from what we want to go for here. So we got some lights. I thought about using the chandelier, but quickly decided that it's not the best idea, and it'd be easier just to stick another one of those lights back here. Now, controversial moment coming up. Don't worry, we're putting a camera in. Now, it's controversial because this is very close to a bathroom, and cameras inside bathrooms are illegal. But the camera's only there because it's a camera pointing to the hallway leading up to the bathroom. And the reason I wanted that to be there is because I figured if there's going to be a theft, if there's going to be a mugging, if there's going to be any sort of crime, it's going to happen in a small hallway. And so we have this hallway, we're going to have a camera there on each of them. So don't worry, the camera's not facing into the bathroom. If you look at that camera, you'll see that the camera cannot point into the actual bathroom stalls or door. It's just for that hallway. Don't go crazy in the comments. So what we want to do here is we wanted to have one of those kind of roofs. I don't really know how to describe the roof. Earlier in the time lapse, I actually showed it a little bit, but I showed the kind of roof I was looking. Unfortunately, the roof I was trying to use was not colorable, and I wanted it to be red. So we set out to do a custom roof, which is something crazy. Once again, something that I got from watching Geekism. Custom roofs. It's a crazy idea, I know, but I think it turns out looking really nice. So what we did, you saw right there, I stuck the custom roof all the way down in that little gap that we have in the building, just so that if we ever need to use it again, it's right there. We can just grab it. No need to try and like select every single piece from this, from the actual roof. We can just grab that piece there. So there's our custom roof, and we're going to build up the side a little bit. And once again, Busch Gardens, take a look at the Google Maps. This looks very similar to what they have here, or what they have there. So a little bit more roof work here just to kind of finish off the building. And we're going to, well, the building, it's still a bit to go with the building, but I didn't really know how to do those sides there. And what we eventually settled on is just kind of increasing the siding of the building, which you will definitely see. But for now, you can tell that I really like those what are they, brick pieces that you see that I'm putting right now. You can tell I really like those because I use them absolutely everywhere. They look really, really good, I think. Really nice piece. Props to the creator of that piece. I think it looks really good. And so there we go. We create a backup there. I decided that probably should have a backup for all the important parks that you have. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try and focus on this roof here. And it's a little weird because the roof that I looked at the Busch Gardens Google Maps Street View, which I'm using for a lot of this park, it was kind of like a castle, but not really. Like it was a castle, but modified. So I figured we'll just go for a castle for now, and if we want to modify it later, we'll go about doing that, or we'll figure out how we want to do that. But I think it ends up looking pretty cool, especially at night. It looks really good. And then, so we're getting close to the end here. We're just going to be doing a little bit more of the actual kind of backstage stuff that the guests would hopefully not see very much of. I felt like Safari Land had to be lit up. You can't have a sign without lighting. So there we go, Safari Land. It's lit up, looks nice. The only problem is that I don't think the structural integrity of Safari Land would hold up very well. So we're going to do a little work on the structural integrity of those letters. First, the S, I think, needs a little bit of a stake holding it up. Then the tree definitely needs kind of metal rods that unfortunately you would see if you were a guest, but they would be necessary. You'd have to have those metal rods, otherwise everything would just fall over. So there we go. Here is some nice slow motion shots so that you can see what we did. We got that staff only area. We did the bathroom. There's the cool little bathroom. We did the waterfall as well, and then we got a couple more shots of the backstage areas. If you like the video, please look how gloomy that looks. If you like the video, hit that like button, put your comments down below, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Whisper.